We've been talking about Paul's words near the conclusion of his letter to the Romans, where he says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, Romans 12, verse 1, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. Welcome to your daily 180 Bible study. We've been talking about what it means for us to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice to God. And we've noticed that what God has wanted all along is not the dead, lifeless sacrifices that characterize the Old Testament worship. What He wants is a living sacrifice, where we come and we give everything that we have and everything that we are in our service to God. And again, this isn't something brand new. This isn't something we only read about in the pages of the New Testament. But this is something God was telling the people in the Old Testament. When they come to bring their offerings to God, He wants it always to be out of a pure and honest heart. If I'm going to present my body as a living sacrifice, what does that demand of me? Well, for one thing, we've noticed that we've got to give up the control of our bodies. God is the one who is going to decide how we use our bodies, what goes into them, and what kind of service we use them for. We've also seen that it requires the renewing of our mind. I don't think the way that I used to. I don't dwell on the things that I used to dwell on. My mind belongs to God. But it also demands that we allow the Spirit to lead us. You notice there he says that this is your reasonable service. Some translations there say your spiritual service. This sacrifice we offer to God is of a spiritual nature. That's very different from what the Jews had been bringing and were continuing to bring. But to allow oneself to be led by the Spirit of God, as Paul talks about so much in this letter, particularly in chapter 8, that requires a great deal of trust in God's wisdom. Because God's ways are not like our ways. God's ways are very different. And they often make no sense to the world around us. And the question is, are we going to be willing to follow His lead? In Romans chapter 8, we're told that there is no condemnation to those who walk by the Spirit and not by the flesh. That law that says the wages of sin is death, it's not going to hold us anymore. We're not subject to the law of sin and death if we allow ourselves to be led by the Spirit of God. And that requires us to bring our hearts into harmony with the perfect will of God that is taught in His holy Word. We hope you'll continue to join us as we come to conclude this series of studies.